doing business in Africa. You can't afford to be without Africa Investor.
I'm going to call on you now, Wamkele, just to share your views on the subject of how you're increasingly making the African Continental Free Trade Area a more bankable and commercially viable opportunity set for investors and traders. Over to you, Wamkele.
Thank you very much, Hubert. Thank you really very much for inviting us, and once again for putting together such a distinguished panel of professionals. I look forward to the discussion and to hear the views of others. I think, as others have recognized, in really unprecedented times, particularly in Africa, we were supposed by now to be moving towards implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. The start of trading was targeted, 1st of July was a target date. That looks unlikely. Borders are closed. Governments are correctly, sensibly, and quite responsibly focusing on saving people's lives and fighting the pandemic. And I think it's very, very important that we give space to governments to be able to do that, to save lives, and then we will resume our work on trade. But let me just give you a sense of the impact on Africa and Africa's economic outlook as a whole since the arrival of the pandemic. The services sector is set to be significantly affected in a negative way, the services sector in Africa. Our estimates are that we will lose between $20 to $35 billion in the services sector, primarily in the airline industry, tourism, hospitality, hotels, and so on. And this has been one of the drivers for some time now. This has been one of the drivers of economic growth in Africa. Our exports are set to decline by up to 35%, which is a loss of over $270 billion. We export over 53% to the traditional markets, primarily the European Union and China and so on. And of course, these are the markets that have, because of COVID-19, that have dried up and causing significant losses to exporters, whether you're talking about small, medium enterprises, whether you're talking about exporters of flour to the European Union from Kenya. The losses are quite significant. We also saw significant FDI outflows at the beginning of the crisis. It seems as if there's some stability beginning to set in, but certainly that FDI outflow did have an impact on countries' macroeconomic standing. The ILO estimates that this year, as a result of the pandemic, there will be up to job losses of up to 6 million losses of jobs. And we know that the majority of those will be in Africa, in the informal sector. And again, this has a very direct impact on Africa's ability to quickly recover from the crisis. Our view is that the best stimulus package for Africa, the best economic recovery effort that Africa can engage in, is the African Continental Free Trade Area. There are very few countries in Africa that have the monetary policy space, the fiscal policy space to provide these huge bailouts, to re-inject dynamism and growth in the economy, the US has provided an economic relief package of over $1 trillion. European Union also similarly huge packages that they have offered to their domestic economy. The airline industry in the US has received $60 billion in the form of grants and loans to help them to cushion the blow of the crisis. And so there are very few countries in Africa that are able to do that and to that scale, which therefore means that what we have to focus on as Africans through this African Continental Free Trade Area is to implement it in a way that it becomes our economic recovery tool. It becomes our stimulus package, it becomes our relief package, so that intra-Africa trade becomes a driver for economic growth in Africa. And of course, at the moment, intra-Africa trade is at very, very low percentages. It is only at about 18%. The rest of our trade goes to the traditional trading partners. And even there, we export, for the most part, we export primary commodities, which is not good for any country at any time, particularly in a time like this where there is a crisis. We have seen the plummet in global commodity prices, and we've seen the impact that has on countries that are overly reliant on the export of primary commodities. So part of this agreement is to facilitate a readjustment, a realignment, and a reform of our economic structure as a continent, so that we have the capacity to export value-added goods, to manufacture value-added goods, to improve our industrial base, and of course, so that we are able to trade amongst one another as Africans, not just an apple for an apple, but to reach the level of manufacturing and industrial specialization that we are able to trade amongst one another and improve and boost significantly intra-Africa trade. And that really goes to the heart of what you raised, Hubert, and that is, where is the scope for investment? We think that once we have laid the regulatory framework, the legal framework in the form of this agreement, which at the moment is 29 countries that have ratified it, the list is increasing as time goes by, and I'm sure in a very short space of time we will have all African countries as state parties to the agreement. There is scope, there is room, there are opportunities for investing in industrial development capacities in Africa. For example, we are in discussions at the moment with a significant manufacturer of automobiles, and they are looking to see how this agreement can facilitate the establishment of pan-African value chains for automobiles, so that they manufacture automobiles in Africa, and identifying centers of excellence for manufacturing for automobiles in Africa across the African continent. And they are willing to bring in the investment to do that. There are other areas. There is the generic drug industry, which this public health crisis has underscored that it is in dire need in Africa, so that we stop importing these life-saving drugs, the personal protection equipment, the ventilators, so that all of that can be manufactured in Africa. So manufacturing is a significant investment opportunity in the long term, as we see it. Second, we discussed this, you and I previously, digital platforms for facilitating trade is a very, very important area of investment. It does a number of things at the same time. One, which is the primary objective, is that it makes trade more efficient, cheaper, more accessible, and of course more reliable when you use digital platforms to trade. Whether you're talking about customs procedures or you're talking about movement of goods and tracking the movements of goods digitally, there is a lot of as we see it anyway, there are opportunities for investing in such platforms, and we could arrange and structure such that there are benefits, commercial benefits for investors. Our role would be to establish the platform, to establish the legal framework that establishes the platform so that investors can come in and assist in the facilitation of trade in Africa. So the post-COVID-19 context, I think, is a significant challenge. But if we look at COVID-19 as an opportunity, yes, it's a crisis. Yes, it is destroying people's livelihoods. But we need to start thinking beyond that and to start saying to ourselves, how can we construct a post-COVID-19 Africa trade and economic development context in a way that enables us to learn from COVID-19. To give you another example, Africa last year imported $15 billion worth of pharmaceutical products. If you look at other regions of the world, such as India, that have a very, very vibrant generic drug industry, I think that is a model for us to consider. How do we invest in the generic drug industry in Africa to do a number of things? One, to ensure that we improve public health and access to reliable and good healthcare, but at the same time, we boost our manufacturing capacity as Africans. So I think the point I'm making is that I see this agreement laying the basis for investment to take place. The country that I am talking to you from, Ethiopia, is very committed to reforms in the financial services sector, the telecom sector, and they are working very hard to make sure that the reforms that they are undertaking are actually that they correspond with the African Continental Free Trade Area, and that the market opening that Ethiopia is going to provide is consistent with the market opening that we have committed to provide to one another as Africans in the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area. And there will be opportunities for investors in Ethiopia, in telecoms, investing in infrastructure, telecoms in this country, in financial services, telecoms in this country. And so I see the post-COVID-19 context for investors facilitated by the African Continental Free Trade Area. I think it's very, very positive. And so I will leave it at that for now, Hubert, and I look forward again to an exchange, and thank you for inviting me.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.